Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring the absolute, unapologetic extreme of market power. We're talking about the monopoly. We're going to step completely away from those crowded, bustling marketplaces you might be used to and walk straight into a world where literally all the power, all the control, and all the supply sits firmly in the hands of one single entity. Let's dive in. I want you to pose this question directly to yourself. What actually happens when one single company controls, well, everything? To really grasp the gravity of that, we kind of need to remember what a market normally looks like, right? In economics, a market isn't just a physical place. It's any network or arrangement where potential buyers and sellers come into close contact to exchange goods and services. Normally, that implies a really dynamic mix of players. But what if we completely removed all the other sellers from that equation? To see just how extreme this is, let's look at the two absolute polar opposites of the market spectrum. On one side, you've got the chaotic, hyper-balanced ideal known as perfect competition. Picture a massive, noisy bazaar, thousands of sellers, thousands of buyers, all trading a completely identical, homogeneous product. In that world, no single seller can budge the price even a penny. They are simply price takers, totally bound by the invisible hand of supply and demand. But then, we pivot sharply to the other side, the monopoly. It's a stark, incredibly powerful contrast. There is only a single seller. They don't take the price, they make it. You know, the word itself literally tells the whole story. Monopoly is derived from two Greek words, mono, meaning single, and poly, meaning seller. I want you to picture this cinematic metaphor with me. Imagine a sprawling city map, and right in the dead center stands this lone, towering corporate skyscraper, the single king. Surrounding the base of this massive tower is a huge crowd of buyers, desperate for a product, looking around, and suddenly realizing they have absolutely zero alternatives. It is just them and the tower. Okay, let's dive into this quote by the economist E.H. Chamberlain. He states, "Monopoly refers to a single firm which has control over the supply of a product which has no close substitute." And honestly, that last part is the absolute anchor of a monopoly. It's not just that they're the only game in town. It's that what they are selling simply cannot be easily replaced by anything else. If you don't like the firm or, if you don't like the price they're demanding, you don't have the luxury of just walking down the street to a competitor. And this brilliantly illustrates the harsh reality for the consumer. No close substitutes. In economic terms, we'd say the cross-elasticity of demand is zero, or even negative. Imagine walking into your local supermarket, walking down an aisle clearly labeled substitutes, and finding absolutely empty shelves. Just bare. You search and search, but there is literally nothing else to buy that will satisfy that specific need. You either buy it from the monopolist, or you completely go without. It's a brutal binary choice. But wait, you're probably thinking, if this single company is making all of this cash and has all these locked-in customers, why on earth don't other companies just jump in and start competing? Well, it's because of rigid barriers to entry. Paint a vivid picture in your mind of a giant, glowing, totally impenetrable force field surrounding that corporate tower. When rival firms try to drive their delivery trucks into the market to compete, they literally bounce right off this force field. These barriers can be legal, like strict government patents. They can be natural, like owning the only diamond mine around. Or they can be technological. Whatever it is, they lock the market down tight. Because those rivals just keep bouncing off. We arrive at this terrifyingly simple truth: complete market control. In a normal competitive market, a firm is just a tiny drop in the bucket of a much larger industry. But here, the firm's emblem expands and just swallows the whole sector. There is absolutely zero distinction between the firm and the industry. They are one and the same. Just imagine a giant hand inside that monopoly tower, reaching out and casually turning a massive dial labeled price up and down entirely at its own will. So the crucial point is this: the sheer power of the price maker. Because the single king swallows the whole sector and completely controls the entire market supply, they simply don't have to listen to the dictates of an open market. If they want to restrict supply just to artificially drive the price up, they absolutely can. They are an absolute price maker. The normal rules of engagement are entirely rewritten when the firm equals the industry. But here is where the monopoly's playbook gets incredibly clever. It's a concept called price discrimination. And this just means charging different prices to different consumers for the exact same product. I mean, have you ever stood in line at a train station or maybe a movie theater and noticed that the person in front of you, like a student with an ID or a senior citizen, paid a fraction of the price you did for the exact same ticket for the exact same journey? That right there is price discrimination in action. The monopolist has the power to do this purely because they control the supply. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how systematically a monopoly can split up its buyers to totally maximize revenue. The monopolist essentially splits their checkout counter into different lines. They can discriminate on a personal level, kind of like how some doctors charge different fees to different patients. They can do it place-wise, like charging different rent in rural versus urban areas, time-wise, like day versus night travel fares, or even by use, like charging you one rate to light up your house and a completely different, much higher rate to power a commercial business. And it's wild because these single kings exist all around us in so many various forms. A private monopoly is controlled by an individual body. Think of the Tata Group in certain specific sectors. Then you have public monopolies, which are government-owned and meant to be welfare-oriented, like Indian Railways. You've got legal monopolies, protected by patents and trademarks. Think of highly specific branded items like Amul products. Natural monopolies emerge from location or climate, like wheat specifically grown in Punjab. And sometimes monopolists voluntarily join forces to avoid cutthroat competition and maximize profit. That's a voluntary monopoly, with OPEC being probably the most famous global example. Now, let's move to a completely surprising twist in our explainer. We've talked all about the single seller, but what happens if we flip the dynamic completely on its head? Enter the monopsony. This is the exact converse of a monopoly. In a monopsony, there are many sellers, but only one single buyer. While buyers' monopolies are definitely rarer, they can be just as exploitative. Think of a remote mining town where there is literally only one single employer. The workers, the sellers of labor, are many, but the buyer of that labor is just one. So the monopsonist dictates the wages, exactly the same way the monopolist dictates the price. Which brings us to our final, and honestly, perhaps most important thought. We've seen the towering strength of the single firm, those impenetrable barriers to entry, and the absolute power of the price maker to dictate terms, discriminate prices, and just control an entire industry. It really leaves us with a profound real-world dilemma. If a monopolist has the unchecked power to exploit buyers simply because there are no close substitutes, well, who protects the market? Who ensures that giant hand on the price dial doesn't just crush the consumer entirely? I'm going to leave you to ponder that as you look at the markets around you today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.